Those tariffs, won't they pass those along? If they passed a tax on golf memberships, you would probably at your resorts pass that along to your members, right? You wouldn't have just absorbed it.
It sort of depends on the market, not necessarily. You look like you might be a golfer, actually, but not really necessarily.
Not a good one, sir.
Not a good one. There aren't too many good ones around, I'll tell you. But not really. I think that you're going to find, and I think when we do it, and different countries also will be tariffed differently. You know, there are some that make tremendous margins on us. We have countries, I won't go into it now, but we have countries that are...
Just as a little interjection, if you're confused, it's because this doesn't make any sense.
Charging us 200% and 250 and 300%, and we charge them nothing. And it's insane, and you just can't do it. And it's really not sustainable. It's not sustainable. There are certain countries that I'd rather not mention them now because I'll be mentioning them if and when we win, but they're going to have to pay up.
Interesting. Tariffs. However you say it, that's what I keep hearing every time I see a political, speech regarding Donald Trump. Every time he speaks, I keep hearing it. I'm not a pro at everything when it comes to a political thing. I just started this political journey about a year ago, and this was very confusing to me about tariffs, so we're going to learn this together. So, will tariffs hurt or destroy the economy? Let's look into it.
The other are across-the-board tariffs, where Trump says, you, China, I'm adding 10% or 20% or 60% tariffs. He never says which is which, right? He just says I'm adding tariffs. So Walmart imports 80% of their products. And so Walmart is buying from China, paying in dollars and saying, I'm paying $1 for that widget.
Sure.
And that dollar comes in and it's $1 right now and that's it. Walmart marks it up and sells the widget at Walmart. Tariffs, it comes in, it gets to the United States. When it comes across the border, there's a 10% tariffs. The Border Patrol says, there's a 10% tariff on it. Walmart, you have to pay 10% of that dollar. You have to pay me a dime for every one of these widgets that come in.
That makes sense.
Walmart has a choice. They can either eat that dime or they pass it on. Now imagine, then he goes to John Deere and he says, if you're thinking about moving any of your manufacturing to Mexico, even though he signed this thing called the USMCA, which allows you to move some of your manufacturing to Mexico. He signed it, he created it, but put that aside. He says to them, okay, we're going to give you a 200% tariff for anything that you make that you then import. Tractors, let's say. So think about it.
That's if John Deere moved their factories to another country.
Even just a portion of them.
Got it.
Right.
No. So he's basically saying, don't leave
the US. Don't leave, but it's not that easy.
Okay, so this is definitely Mark Cuban's ideal of what tariffs would do, how we as a consumer would definitely hurt or be impacted by the tariffs, meaning that the retailers themselves would not just eat that. They would not eat that cost. They would definitely raise their prices and it would cause us to pay more at the register. But that's Mark Cuban. He's an entrepreneur. Even though he's a billionaire, he's not necessarily an economist.
Donald Trump's economic agenda, and some of them have picked up bipartisan support as a way of dealing with China. But there are still key differences between Trump and Vice President Harris when it comes to how large and wide-ranging they should be. As economics correspondent Paul Salmon reports, the potential impact of imposing more tariffs was debated on stage last night and is very much on the minds of some voters in battleground states.
Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
Last night, former President Trump began by defending his aggressive tariff policies, both from his first term and what he would do if he wins again.
I want to stop to let it be known we have tariffs right now as I sit here, as you watch this, and Trump put them into place and Biden did not get rid of them. Now, that is to take that how you will. Take that how you will. Because if it is as bad as, people are saying it is on the opposite end of this, they would be gone by now. I'm just being honest.
That includes a 10 to 20% tariff on all foreign goods and a 60% tariff, that is, import tax, on goods from China. It was the very first policy spat in last night's debate.
My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month.
But one thing is true. The Biden administration maintained most of the tariffs on more than $300 billion worth of goods from the original Trump regime and added tariffs on another $18 billion worth of items from steel to medical supplies, including a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles.
We are fighting for middle-class families.
And Vice President Harris supports tariffs too, she's electric vehicles.
So we added tariffs, 100% tariff on EVs. Now, the only thing I can get from that is that they want to stop Chinese EVs from coming over, and more likely saying, "Hey, we want EVs that are made here and sold here, to help the economy out." That's the only reason I can see of that, to slam someone for tariffs and then go, "I'm gonna put tariffs on." 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, it makes absolutely no sense. It's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of...
We are fighting for middle-class families.
It's contradictive. I couldn't even press play. There we go. It's contradictive of going on a stage to debate and saying a Trump tax, but then also putting tariffs as you are sitting in office. All right? This is not to bash either side. I'm just calling it how I see it right now.
And Vice President Harris supports tariffs too, she said, so long as they're much smaller and targeted. You'll hear more about that in a bit. What's so striking is that protective tariffs were once a partisan point of stark conflict. But now both candidates are in favor of tariffs, which of course have such obvious appeal to workers afraid of losing their jobs. Many of them swing state voters in import-threatened industries. Small wonder that at a Detroit Teamsters union local, there was plenty of support for protective tariffs.
Short-term discomfort for long-term relief.
I think it's a good thing. One way to ensure that jobs are going to be at least starting back here in the United States. Good paying jobs. Jobs that they outsourced overseas. Maybe it's not something that's going to happen immediately, but over time, it's probably something I think is going to be very effective at bringing jobs back to our country.
But there were tariff skeptics as well.
I would say it probably wouldn't happen right away, so I might not benefit from it.
Professor Kim Clausing worked for the Biden administration, has studied the impact of past and would-be future tariffs as an academic.
Our trading partners may retaliate against our tariffs with tariffs of their own, which hurts our export sectors.
So when the Trump administration slapped tariffs on imports from multiple countries, including China, it did spur some domestic production and manufacturing. Trump's team also cites a rise in median household income during that period, before the pandemic hit, as evidence of success. But overall, says economist Clausing,
when you take a hard look at the data, they really aren't worth it for jobs, and they raise costs for consumers.
So what I'm getting from this so far is basically that tariffs are good as long as they're targeted and they're not too high. Okay, so that's what I'm getting from this, because no one's giving specifics. Some, they're interviewing. This is the thing about politics. They won't give specifics because it won't fit their narrative on either side, Democratic or Republican, right? They won't give specifics unless you are in that position and you are in that office or in that administration. That's the only way you'll know. They'll only give specifics when it helps them. So looking at this video report by PBS NewsHour, is giving both sides, and neither side are proving their point of what tariffs should be there, right? They're not saying tariffs are bad. They're not saying they're good. They're saying they're needed. And I think that's what we can come to the conclusion. But what trips me out about this whole tariff situation is, if you go look at articles, they're bashing tariffs instead of going, hey, tariffs is a good thing, right? Tariffs are a good thing, and Trump is not tripping out when he says we need tariffs, because we do, because we have them, they're still there. But what he's going wrong at is the amount and who he's trying to give them to. So what all this is telling me is that it ain't doing much if we have them or if we don't. Yeah, we're spending a little bit more at the register. If we didn't have them, we'll spend a little less. But it's not such a major thing that we should be fighting over this in a political stand. This should not be a political issue. This is just my opinion. You can come in the comments and say what you will. If there is something I'm missing, let me know in the comments. because I'm still confused of why this is being pushed so much in every political debate. If you are still here, go ahead and hit that like button. If you're here for the second time, I don't care if you're here for the first time, hit that subscribe button. We're going to talk more. I'll see you next video.